Welcome to this tutorial. Today we will be learning a poem, Enterprise by Nissim Ezekiel. Let us first read the poem. It started as a pilgrimage, exalting minds and making all the burdens light. The second stage explored but did not test the cold. The sun beat down to match our rage. We studied very well, I thought, observed and put down copious notes on things the peasants sold and bought, the way of serpents and of gods, 3 cities where a sage had taught. But when the differences arose on how to cross a desert patch, we lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. A shadow falls on us and grows. Another pace was reached when we were twice attacked and lost our way. A section claimed its liberty to leave the group. I tried to pray. Our leader said he smelled the sea. We noticed nothing as we went. A straggling crowd of little hope, ignoring what the thunder meant, deprived of common needs like soap. Some were broken, some merely bent. When finally we reached the place, we hardly knew why we were there. The trip had darkened every face. Our deeds were neither great nor rare. Home is where we have to gather grace. Nissim Ezekiel, he was born in the year 1924 and died on 2004. He was considered to be one of the foremost figures among post-independence Indian poets writing in English. He was also a prolific dramatist, critic, broadcaster, and social commentator. He was a professor of English at Bombay University during the 1960s and also visiting professor at Leeds University. He also lectured in the US and Australia. He wrote on contemporary themes. In his later poems, he turned his attention increasingly to religious themes, such as in the poem Enterprise. A poem, Enterprise by Nissim Ezekiel, was divided into 6 stanzas, consisting 5 lines in each stanza. The rhyme scheme pattern of the poem is A B A B A, and the poem was written in iambic tetrameter. As we all know, a word enterprise, it means a project or undertaking hardships or difficulties. So let us try to understand what is the enterprise or a project that the poet was undertaking. So in the first stanza, the very first line, it opens as, it started as a pilgrimage. So it started as a pilgrimage. So the movement or the project that they have started, it started as a pilgrimage. As we all know, pilgrimage is a spiritual journey to the sacred place. So here in this poem, the poet, he mixed or juxtaposed the movement that they were undergoing with a pilgrimage. So when they started their pilgrimage, they all were in exalting minds and making all the burdens light. That means they were high spirit. They were in a high spirit. They were all excited. They were all happy. And they intend or they wish to make all the burdens light. Whatever burdens, whatever obligations or whatever responsibilities that they were carrying, they meant to lighten them all. So during the second stage, what happened? They explored but did not test the coal. So they were going on a pilgrimage and they were exploring, but they did not test the coal. So for what purpose they were being cold? They did not have any taste. The sun beat down to match our rate. So in between that, what happened in the second stage? The sun beat down. So the first obstacle that they have to face during the pilgrimage was that they were beaten down by the sun to match their rates, to test their spirit or to test their anger, to test their aspirations. So the sun here becomes the symbol of harshness or the difficulty. In the second stanza, the poet says that we stood it very well. So in spite of harshness, they stood it very well. So they were not broken down, even though they were beaten down by the sun, but they were not broken down. So the poet thought that they stood it very well. Whatever harshness they have faced, they have stood it very well. Observed and put down copious notes. So while they were on their journey, or while they were moving as a pilgrim, so whatever they observed while they were making a journey, they were putting down the copious notes. So they were copying down whatever they were feeling or whatever they were seeing or hearing around them. On things the peasants sold and bought. So what are the things that they were copying down? So while they were on their pilgrimage, they were copying down the simple things of life. For example, about peasants, they were selling and buying the way of serpents and of gods. So here we can see the typical Indian society or the typical Indian setting about serpents. Serpents means snakes, and about gods. 3 cities where our saints had taught. So they have even visited the 3 cities where the saints, the holy people, they have taught. So in the third stanza, he continues as, but when the differences arose on how to cross a desert page. So in the third stanza, we can see that they have reached the desert patch, and differences arose among the pilgrims. So in their opinion, so in their idea or in their thought, the differences arose among the pilgrims. So in between that, what happened? We lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. So while on their pilgrim, what happened? They have lost their friend. So their friend was very good. He was very stylish in writing the prose. So when they lost their friend, whose stylish prose was quite the best of all their batch, so a shadow falls on them. So they were disillusioned. They were disheartened, and it grows. In the fourth stanza, the poet further says that, so another pace was reached when we were twice attacked and lost our way. So they were attacked, and then now they lost their way. A section claimed its liberty to leave the group. So among them, among the pilgrims, what happened? Some pilgrims, they were claiming to give them the freedom to leave the group. So they don't want to continue their pilgrimage, so they want to leave the group. I tried to pray. So the speaker, he became helpless and then he prayed. Our leader said he smelled the sea. So in between that juncture, what happened? Their leader, the leader of the pilgrimage, he said that he smelled the sea. That means they were just about to reach the better place. Though the pilgrims were disillusioned, they were in a low spirit, but in the fifth stanza, they still continues to go on their pilgrimage, and then they say that we noticed nothing as we went, a straggling crowd of little hope. So they were in a little hope, ignoring what the thunder meant. So here we have another symbol, thunder. So thunder here, it means a loud warning. So thunder here, it can mean the warning for impending disaster, or simply signaling for the upcoming difficulties. But they ignored this warning or the thunder, and then they were deprived of common needs like soap. So while on their pilgrimage, they could not satisfy their simple basic needs. Therefore, some were broken and some merely bent. In spite of facing several difficulties and hardships during their journey, the pilgrims finally reached the place. We hardly knew why we were there. So when they reached the place, they were confused and they don't know for what purpose they have come to that place. The trip had darkened every face. They were expecting happiness or the excitement to reach their place. But when they finally reached the place, they don't have that excitement anymore. And then their face had darkened. Our deeds were neither great nor rare. So whatever they have done during their pilgrimage, their deeds were neither great or neither rare. So it was just simple about the ordinary things. And then they realized that in the last stanza, the last line, home is where we have to gather grace. The pilgrims were expecting to have the special or extraordinary spiritual experiences from the far place, from the different place. But once they reached the place, they simply understood that it is simple, it is neither extraordinary or neither rare. So whatever they could have experiences, so whatever they could have learned from their own place, from their own home. Therefore they remarked as home is where we have to gather grace. So in the poem Enterprise by Nissim Ezekiel, the poet describes a spiritual pilgrimage where each pilgrim faces difficulties and disillusionment along the way. The poem, however, concludes on a note of exaltation and optimism when the pilgrims realize that it is not by undertaking long, hazardous journeys, but by doing the right deeds that everyone can receive God's grace. The poet's conversational and lucid style creates an apt atmosphere for this poem. In a deeper level, the poem is an expression of a movement or undertaking, a model or mode of writing Indo-Anglian poetry in the post-independence in Indian literature. Nissim Ezekiel was considered as the father of modern Indian English poetry. So Nissim Ezekiel, along with other group of Indian writers or the Indo-Anglian writers, they have started a movement of writing Indian poems about Indian context in English language for the first time in India. So when they have started the Indo-Anglian writing of poetry, they don't know whether the general public or the reader would accept the new trend of writing poetry in English language in India. So the poet describes this undertaking or movement of Indian Anglo writing as a pilgrimage. They feel the need to explore and at the same time to decide and fix about their new movement. So during the journey or during their movement, they have to face several attacks from the critics, and at the same time they have to face different trials and hardships. And when they finally completed the journey, they realized that they have to gather grace from their own home. So Indo-Anglian writing is all about writing about India, about its own country in English language by the Indian writers or the poets. Thus the poem is a juxtaposition or the combination of two ideas, which are number one, the movement or undertaking of writing Indian Anglo poetry, and number two, an undertaking of the pilgrimage by the group of pilgrims. So this is a concise tutorial on a poem Enterprise by Nissim Ezekiel. Thank you for watching. Enjoy learning.